All right, Coach, welcome to Module 2 of the Varsity Edge, your blueprint to getting the head coaching job. This is Coach Coltharp coming to you again. And in this module, we're going to talk about the strategic search, how to pick what jobs you want to apply for, what kind of homework you need to do before you go into the interview and things of that nature. As always, this is a short mini course that's kind of based on my book of the same title, The Varsity Edge. It's supposed to come out here in the next couple of weeks, scheduled for 12/12/25, but I may get it done early. So if it comes out early, check that out, and I'll tweet that and do all the good stuff. But the link to the book will be in the description of the video. So let's jump into the video and talk about the strategic search. Strategy is customized. The strategic search is about doing your homework. Since you're applying for your first head coaching job, you can't afford a generic application. The head coach candidate sends a tailored blueprint. Before you apply, you must know what you're walking into. This is where you determine if the job is a sustain or a rebuild. For a first-time coach, understanding this is a key to setting realistic expectations and tailoring your pitch. For many years, every job I applied for was a rebuild, and I got really, really good at it because I knew what it took to fix. And then a lot of times when you get a job that's a rebuild, long-term success is very difficult because of various things, whether it's finances, demographics, frequent changes in administration, and so on and so forth. But that's a whole nother conversation. But the first thing you want to look at is when you're doing this program health analysis, you're doing this due diligence. Is this a job that you really want? And look, there's two types of jobs. There are guys who want to go. They'll want to be a head coach at all costs, and they'll take any job. And sometimes you're going to take a job and it's a career ender. You're going to get one shot, and the job is so hard that you're not going to be very successful, and you may not get another shot. And that's why due diligence is so important. So the first thing you want to do is look at the financial engine. Is the program funded primarily by the district or by the booster club? High booster alliance means you need an elite fundraising strategy, not just a great defense. So that's very, very important. And then the other part of that is what are you going to do to keep those boosters happy? What's the staff and enrollment? What's the staff turnover rate? How many teachers are coming and going? Those kind of things. How many coaches have they had in the last 10 years? I mean, that tells you a lot about the school and the community. High turnover signals a toxic culture or an overbearing AD. Is the school's general enrollment shrinking or growing? This tells you a lot about the talent pool for the next, 4 years. The predecessor. Why did the last coach leave? If it was forced, the administration wants stability and liability controlled. If they retired, they want a seamless transition. Tailor your narrative to the administrator's core pain point. Next, you want to look at your operations manual. This is the document that wins the job for a first-time applicant. It proves that you thought past week one. This manual is your administrative resume. And remember, we talk about that CEO resume, and this is how you put it together. The first thing you want to look at is your staff organizational chart. Go beyond offensive and defensive coordinators. Show dedicated roles for academic coordinators, somebody who's going to track eligibility, equipment manager who deals with inventory and safety, video coordinator, huddle technology. And I would also include the role that the athletic trainer is going to play in your total program. And this proves you prioritize logistics and safety. Have a yearly timeline. Show a detailed 12-month calendar. When does fundraising happen? When is the facility deep cleaned? When are parents' meetings held? These are all really, really important type things, and it shows that you can have a framework for the big picture. Facility and equipment plan. Outline a 3-year plan for helmet replacement. That's huge these days, especially with the 10-year rule and the cost. And you never know how many you're going to lose in reconditioning. So you want to get on a buy plan. So where if you buy 10 and you lose 3, you're plus 7. What do you got to do to keep your numbers right? Field maintenance, uniform turnover. Find out if if you're on a 4 or 5 year rotation. A lot of schools are on a 4 or 5 year rotation uniform wise, but this shows that you understand risk mitigation. It shows that you understand how important that is, and that you're thinking about money and operations. And then lastly, kind of what are your essential fundraising strategies? Every AD is going to want to know, how are you going to raise money? And your answer must be strategic, demonstrating you can handle the budget without prior head coaching experience. And this is where I would say tap into fundraisers that you've been a part of as a player, as an assistant, as other people have looked at. This is where you do online research and you talk to guys and say, hey, what have you done to raise money? Things like reverse raffles, bowling tournaments, golf tournaments, gold cards, all those kind of different things that people do to raise money. Cow pie bingo. I mean, I've seen golf ball drops from helicopters. I mean, this is all kind of crazy stuff. But booster boundaries. Formalize the bylaws. Understand what the booster club role is. The head coach manages the program. The booster club manages the money. And those clear boundaries prevent interference and liability issues. I had a situation where I was a head football coach and the athletic director, but my rule was no coach went to the booster club without going through me. Only the AD would make money requests to the booster club. And that way I was able to see who was doing what. Some schools have single sport booster clubs. Some schools have total athletic booster clubs, but understanding the framework of that booster club is really important. And those are things that you can kind of ask about informally. But if you're not sure, these are things you definitely need to ask about during the interview process. Come up with sponsorship tiers, professional tiered pitch decked for local businesses, gold, silver, bronze, what offer tangible return on investment, social media mentions, banners. I already have a plan for that. Hey, these are how I'm going to approach sponsors. This is how we're going to raise money. These are the things that I want to do. And they may already be doing these things, but the fact that you're thinking about these things make it really, really important. And then, what are your high return events? Focused on low overhead, high impact events like lift-a-thons. Penny a pound goes a long way. Each kid raising, $25 and you got 100 kids, that's $2,500. That's amazing. And then you're also connecting, kind of your physical development to fundraising goals. So, just kind of going back through it, you're definitely in this module, and you're thinking about that strategic search. What's the program health? Is the population going up, going down? What's going on in the community? Is the community thriving? Is the community dying? Is the community stagnant? Are a lot of kids living with their grandparents? Are people coming and going? All these things are kind of important. What's the past 10 years of the school? How many head coaches have they had? Why did the guy who was there before, why is he leaving? And then, of course, developing your operation manual and things of that nature. These are all things that you need to think about as you prepare to apply for these jobs, so that when you walk into to the interview process, you have a good idea of what you're getting into and whether this is a job that it's worth you going after. Because, like I said, there are some jobs that you only go after if you just are dead set that you want to be a head coach and you don't care about the rest. And when that happens, more often than not, it's more detrimental to your career than it is creating growth.